Stings. The single reason why we fear so many of the insects and creepy crawlies on our planet. Out of millions of species of arthropod, quite a few of them have developed their own flavors of toxic stings, from the cunning defenses of caterpillars to the venomous barbs of scorpions. If you've ever set foot outside, you have definitely seen a creature armed with a stinger. And there's a good chance that you've been stung by something at some point. I'll let you in on a little secret. Getting stung by anything is no fun. But have you ever had the morbid curiosity to find out what creature has the absolute worst sting? Today, we're ranking the stings in the US from the very weakest to the worst imaginable, and you might be surprised at how dangerous, or not, some of America's most infamous creepy crawlies actually are. At the bottom of the tier list, we have F tier. And while I could group a whole host of creatures in here that are incapable of stinging, we're gonna stick with stuff we'd normally expect to be able to sting, but can't. While there are dozens of ants and bees you might come across that, despite their flashy looks, can't actually sting you, the one you'll definitely recognize are the carpenter ants. These are the largest ants in the US, so you could say it's a good thing that they're non-venomous. Rather than stinging their food to immobilize it, they use sheer force of numbers and brute strength, coupled with their scissor-like jaws, to subdue unfortunate insects. They get their name for their affinity for wood. These ants are super specialized on making their homes inside of wooded structures, sometimes including your house. For the most part, these relatively peaceful ants are scavengers, helping to recycle decaying material and weakened insects on the forest floor, and will happily persist peacefully out of sight, posing no threat to humans. While we're staying on the forest floor, we're moving up a tier. Our D tier stings are strong enough to be noticed, but really aren't going to be anything more than a mild annoyance. At the bottom of D tier, we have something that isn't an insect at all. I know what you're thinking. Don't centipedes bite? Well, sort of. The appendages we usually consider to be their fangs are actually modified legs, which have adapted over the millennia to be hollow venom injection tubes that these myriapods use to absolutely eviscerate their prey, and also defend themselves. Generally speaking, centipedes don't really seek us out, but if you're not careful flipping a rock or a log that one of these squirmy little creatures is under, you might startle one and cause it to latch on. The small garden variety centipedes like this are comparable to most small ants. The pain is not severe at all, and is followed by a tingling itch that resolves within a few minutes. The centipede may be terrifying in appearance, but rest assured they're more bark than bite, or in this case, sting. Next up in D tier is the fire ant, and I already know what you're thinking. What are they doing so low? Fire ants are one of the most infamous stinging insects in the US, if not the world. Shouldn't they be higher? Well, not really. The entomologist Justin Schmidt ranked the sting of the fire ant quite low as well, and a lot of this has to do with the severity of an individual sting. Fire ants are social insects, evolving to have thousands of individual animals function as one unit. This means they will fiercely defend their nests. Fire ants are really feared for their swarming behavior and the likelihood of you taking many stings, not the stings of individual ants. So what is a fire ant sting like? While most people living in the southern states probably already know, a single sting can almost go unnoticed. You might feel something start to itch in your sock or pant leg, maybe an old mosquito bite acting up. If you notice the initial sting, it's a mild buzzing sensation with some tingling afterwards. Only slightly more potent than the red bark centipedes we covered lower in this tier. Fire ants shouldn't be written off just because they're so low though. Many people are absolutely allergic to their venom, and reactions can be serious. Even if you're not allergic, fire ant venom is one of the more toxic known venoms in the insect world, with its potency being 6 to 7 times the toxicity of many of the rattlesnakes found here. A single sting might not be too bad, but hundreds or thousands of stings can be quite serious. These tiny little hymenopterans are truly a force of nature. As we venture into even more painful stings, we find ourselves in C tier. At the bottom, we're looking at another non-insect, the desert hairy scorpion. Coming in as the largest scorpion in the US, you'd think they'd pack more of a punch, but look at those claws in the front. These arachnids are built tough, and their strength and size means that they're ideal prey items other small ground-dwelling arthropods can be overpowered by brute force alone. Don't get me wrong, these scorpions are absolutely venomous, but the venom of the desert hairy is not anything to get too excited about. Their large, powerful claws can probably deliver a more painful pinch than their sting even is, and most of the pain comes from the size of the stinger. A slight needle pinprick and some localized soreness from some time after is about the worst the average person can expect from this creepy crawly. Allergies do exist, but are fairly rare. Like the smaller centipedes, the desert hairy scorpion is more about intimidation than actual danger, keeping it in low C tier. Probably the most iconic member of this list, the honeybee is also the standard that most stings in the arthropod phylum are compared to. The famous sting index ranks them a 2, but is also standardized to this bee's sting. These guys are a staple in your garden, a huge part of agriculture, and as you might have guessed, venomous. Like the fire ants, honeybees are part of the insect order Hymenoptera, and like many of their distant evolutionary cousins, use their stings primarily as a way to defend their nest. Most of the time, these insects use their striking coloration as a warning to keep attackers at bay, as they're really not aggressive at all. The workers, which are the ones we actually see buzzing about, are more intent on gathering nectar for their brood than they are about picking fights. It's not an urban legend that they only really get to sting once. That being said, if they are prompted to sting, there's a good chance you're gonna get more than one. A neat thing about the social Hymenopteran insects is that they've actually developed chemical languages. They use different pheromones to help establish who's supposed to be doing what, where good food is, and to sound an alarm if they're agitated. Nearby bees can receive this chemical call to arms and will hone in on the source, ready to inject you full of venomous barbs. So keep your distance, admire these cute little guys from afar, and you'll be just fine. Climbing up the ladder in C tier, we have a less well-known group of ants, but one of the more interesting ones. Trap giants get their name from their specialized mandibles. See them right there in the front? Well, it turns out they can snap them shut super fast, but if that's not cool enough, their sting is not the most pleasant thing in the world. They have a sharp, startling sting, like if you got poked with a small, hot needle. Like the fire ants, they're really only interested in defending their nest, so these stings pretty much only happen when you accidentally disturb them. But unlike the fire ants, you will know if you got tagged by one of these guys immediately. And getting swarmed is definitely not a fun experience. At the top of C tier, we have what might be the most infamous insect in the entire US. The yellow jacket is thought of as the very embodiment of anger. These insects are striking. Vibrant yellow on jet black, they advertise a flamboyant warning to anyone who would mess with them. Stay away or you will regret it. Despite their reputation, they're usually not super aggressive. Where it gets dicey is when you disturb their nests. They don't hide in plain sight like the paper wasps or bees, they tend to be nesting inside logs or under rocks, so you might not even see them before it's too late. Let's just say I know from personal experience. So I spent a lot of time out here in the woods, flipping logs, rocks, stuff like that, looking for all kinds of weird creatures to film. But when I'm moving them, I gotta be really careful. Not just because there might be venomous spiders or snakes underneath, but because sometimes yellow jackets like to make their nests underneath logs and rocks and underground. And the problem with that is it's really easy to get swarmed because you can disturb the nest without any warning. And I tell you, yellow jackets are no fun. They will light you up. It's a sharp, really throbbing sting. And the welts that you get afterwards, they don't just itch, they're really achy and sore. And when your legs are covered with these itchy, throbbing, aching yellow jacket stings, you'll see exactly why these guys rank the top of C tier. Starting off B tier, we have the harvester ants. While not as aggressive as the yellow jackets, these social Hymenoptera have a different claim to fame: their venom. Many of the social ants and wasps have pretty potent venom if they're able to sting in the first place, but the harvester ants are on another level. The more common species are on par, if not edging out, the widow spiders in toxicity. And the Maricopa harvester ants of the southwest US are the most venomous insects on the planet, with toxicity matching that of cobras. Harvester ants are pretty unmistakable. Even though they vary in color, they have this distinct large square head compared to their bodies, species and will clear out the immediate area near their nest. Different species have different looks to their nest entrances, but they're not building huge mounds like the fire ants do. And fortunately, they are much less aggressive. That being said, they still don't mess around when it comes to defending their nests, and you will feel it if a harvester ant stings you. The initial pain is not terrible compared to many of the other stings on this list, but you'll be in moderate aching pain for a few hours due to the sheer potency of their venom. A substantial sting will leave you with mild muscle aches and weakness for a while, similar to mild widow spider bites. And due to the toxicity of their venom, you definitely don't want to get swarmed. 600 stings from the Maricopa harvester ant will kill an adult human my size. It sounds like a lot, until you realize that there are thousands of ants in a single colony, and they can sting multiple times. Welcome to B tier. These are some of the creatures not to take lightly. As we move higher, we go up in pain, but down in toxicity with the velvet ant. These brightly colored insects, funny enough, aren't ants at all, but a group of wingless wasps that patrol the ground looking for insect eggs to parasitize. With nearly 200 species in the US, these velvet ants are almost cute and fuzzy looking, but be warned, as fluffy and adorable as they might look, you don't want to cuddle them. They're not aggressive by any means, and can be safely handled by professionals, but that color serves a purpose. They're telling you that they have an excruciating sting if you mess with them, and to keep your distance. And a painful sting they have indeed. One of the higher ranking stings on the Schmidt Pain Index, the sting of the velvet ant is immediately intense, with a potent burning sensation that travels up the affected limb. Reports vary on just how bad they are, but the consensus is that they're one of the most painful insect stings in the world. What's most interesting about the velvet ant sting is it seems to have evolved only to cause pain. Where many of the social wasps and ants use their venom to paralyze and kill the prey they eat, these solitary egg hunters don't need a lethal venom. But without wings, they're easy targets for plenty of predators. It turns out, compared to the venoms of many other insects and arthropods, the velvet ant is actually not very toxic at all. So the good news is, if you're stung by this insect, it will certainly hurt, but you're in no immediate danger. The pain fades in 15 to 30 minutes, leaving only mild inflammation and a welt. As a reminder, not to mess with the velvet ant ever again. Next up in B tier, we have one of the most infamous and probably feared insects in the US, the paper wasp. While there's a lot of variation in the genus Polistes, one thing is for sure: if they sting you, it hurts. They have the toxicity of the honeybee combined with the pain of the velvet ant, and have also earned one of the higher scores on the Schmidt Pain Index, coming in at a strong 3. In the southern states, paper wasps are reported to be the most painful hymenopteran stings. Their venom is a complicated cocktail of neurotoxins and paralytics used for subduing their prey and defending their nest. When you're stung, it essentially lights your nervous system on fire, hyperactivating your pain responses. The sting feels almost like an acid is eating away at your flesh for a few minutes, before dying down to a dull ache. Like the velvet ant, paper wasp stings are short-lived. Where paper wasps get mixy is that they will defend their nest in numbers, similar to the honeybee, meaning that instead of one powerful sting like you might get from a velvet ant, you could get dozens of stings from an angry nest of paper wasps. They are an absolute force to be reckoned with and earned their rank in high B tier. Claiming the top spot in B tier are the bark scorpions of the genus Centroroides. The most widespread scorpions in the US, their flat body and secretive lifestyle means they often wind up in really inconvenient places. Inside clothes left on the floor, inside and under shoes, and even in your cupboards. Unlike the wasps, you almost certainly will not see the scorpions before they sting you, and bark scorpions are no walk in the park. The vast majority of the genus aren't dangerous to humans, but the neurotoxic venom they all share will not go unnoticed. The initial sting is very painful. Most will cause localized muscle spasms and numbness to the affected limb, and nausea and dizziness aren't unheard of. While they may be much smaller than the desert hairy scorpions, they make up for their lack of size in their potency. Across their range, the bark scorpions are some of the most venomous arachnids you might encounter in your house or yard, and are able to take down even small reptiles. You might have heard that the best way to see if a scorpion is dangerous is to shine a UV light and see if they glow, but almost all scorpions fluoresce to some degree. In the US, a better technique I use is to look at the claws. Bigger claws you'll usually see on less venomous scorpions, because they're using brute force to overpower their prey rather than venom. Smaller claws, you might be looking at a more dangerous species. This is not a perfect tool, so learning what the scorpions in your area look like is the most important thing. As we climb into A tier, we will eventually see even more dangerous scorpions than your run-of-the-mill bark scorpions. Our final wasp on this list, and the start of our most painful tier yet, is the tarantula hawk. These are giant wasps, and their name isn't just for show. They're known to take down giant spiders, including fully grown tarantulas. Have a look at those orange wings and that deep jet black body. That is the tarantula hawk. These insects are powerful, a true force of nature. We caught her dragging a tarantula across the road, and they will actually hunt tarantulas and large, huge spiders. They use that stinger, which has a notoriously painful sting, to actually paralyze the giant spiders and lay eggs inside of it. If you think that's creepy, the eggs hatch, and the tarantula is still alive when the larvae start to feed. With that paralyzing venom, their sting is excruciating. The only insect to rank a 4 on the Schmidt Pain Index in the United States, the tarantula hawk sting is reported to be debilitating for the short duration of its effects, similar to exposing the affected limb to a live current of electricity. Their venom is designed to short-circuit the nervous system, completely disabling the giant venomous spiders they prey on. The nice thing about this sting is the vast majority of people will never need to experience its effects. Tarantula hawk wasps are extremely shy, and their solitary nature means they're not going to be defending a nest if you walk up on them. If you see one, they will most likely fly away, sounding like some sort of small aircraft as they do so. Their bright orange wings and jet black body serve as a warning to keep your distance, and as long as you do, they'll leave you well alone. Next up in A tier, we have the one arthropod I am genuinely afraid of: giant centipedes. They're huge, fast, and highly venomous, and they advertise it. Most of the giant centipedes are very brightly colored, warning you to leave them alone. And that's if you even see them. These scourges of the underworld spend almost all of their time hunting underground or under cover of darkness. They follow chemical trails to find their prey, and their flexible exoskeleton means they can squeeze in and out of tight spaces to hunt. With their speed, maneuverability, keen sense of smell, and powerful venom, there isn't a lot of prey they can't take down. Lizards, small mammals, and birds are all on the menu if the centipede can reach them. And with venom evolved to kill vertebrates, you can bet that it's one heck of a bad time if you're stung. Like the small bark centipedes, we often call envenomations from giant scolopendra a bite, but their fangs are actually modified legs, meaning it's really a sting. And that cocktail of venom contains a whole host of nasty toxins. While I have never had the misfortune of experiencing a full tank load from one of these centipedes, a simple pinch and release to my finger quickly felt like my hand had been slammed in a heavy door. The throbbing ache and fast-spreading inflammation cannot be understated. I treat large scolopendra like I would venomous snakes. I stay hands-off as much as I can. These animals are by no means aggressive, but due to their poor vision and subterranean nature, once they're exposed and out in the open, you can bet their behavior will be unpredictable. The best thing to do if you come across one of these monstrous myriapods is to give it some space, and rest assured, it won't pay you any mind. Getting into the upper end of A tier, this next one might surprise you. There are caterpillars that can sting, and they are gnarly. Think about it. For the most part, caterpillars are not the fastest, and in order to survive to adulthood, they need to come up with some pretty creative tricks to survive. While many opt for camouflage, bitter tastes, or even some impressive intimidation displays, some of them are actually venomous. A few of the silk moth caterpillars have venomous barbs that line their bodies and can produce excruciating stings if touched. This keeps them safe from birds and lizards that would otherwise pick them off. But even these venomous caterpillars aren't the masters of horrifying pain. The reason this group makes it into A tier is because of this fuzzball right here. What looks like a cute little fluffy creature that you might want to pet packs one of the worst stings of any insect in North America. Concealed in this caterpillar's fur are fiberglass-like spines that break off and release venom into your system, sending you into a new world of agony. The pain is instant, causing grid-like rashes across your skin and radiates through the affected limb. Depending on the severity of the sting, you might become nauseous or dizzy. People have been hospitalized by this caterpillar. And what's crazy is, these caterpillars use these venomous stings entirely for defense. They're not eating other animals, just munching on leaves. The nice thing is, they'll never angrily fly at you, and they're not wicked fast hunters like the centipedes. The only unfortunate time where one might sting you on accident is if it happens to fall out of a tree while you're walking under it. As long as you keep your distance, you'll never have to worry about the agonizing sting of these caterpillars, but their potency definitely lands them in the higher ranks of A tier. At the top of A tier, we have the first truly medically significant arthropod sting in the US, the Arizona bark scorpion. A member of the bark scorpion genus we covered down in B tier, this scorpion gets a specific mention because it is just so much more venomous than any of its relatives. Recognizable by its pale yellow appearance and slender body, this arachnid is incredibly common in the southwestern US, and it's the most venomous scorpion in all of North America. The neurotoxic sting this guy packs will light you up. It has the electric pain of all the other bark scorpions, coupled with the muscle aches and systemic symptoms of the black widow. People who've been stung by this scorpion have reported a loss of breath, and even loss of function of the affected limb for hours afterwards. And the best part? The pain can last up to 3 full days. For a healthy adult, this scorpion is unlikely to be a medical emergency, but if you live in their range and are stung by a scorpion, it's definitely something to keep a close eye on. With the exception of allergic reactions, this is the only creature on this tier list that has killed people in recent history. If they were larger or more aggressive, they might even be able to make it into low S tier. But since death is not in the normal expected range of the effects of this scorpion, it stays at the top of A tier. Much like the spider bites, there aren't any arthropod stings in the US that are typically lethal to healthy human adults. So for now, we're leaving S tier blank. I know I got complaints in the comments on the spider bite tier list, but I really think it's important to see an empty S tier to know that while there are some seriously painful stings out there, none of them are really going to kill you. And the stings we do have are all key parts of strategies that allow these bizarre creatures to survive. Defending nests, subduing prey, and warding off attacks from predators have allowed all of these wonderful little creepy crawlies to persist for millennia here on our planet, where they are all part of the secret world that surrounds us every day. And venomous stings aren't the only insane defenses that the arthropods in the US have. What if I told you that there was a beetle with incredibly poisonous blood? If you want to learn more about the infamous blister beetles, check out this video right here. Hope to see you there, but until next time, don't forget to get outside and find your own adventure.